Welcome to the Teaching Autism and Special Education Community Podcast. Hi, I'm Nikki, a passionate special educator, autism advocate, resource creator with over a decade of experience, and you may know me as the face behind Teaching Autism. This podcast is your go-to place for practical tips, hands-on strategies, and inspiring and funny stories to support special educators all around the world, whether it's building independence, creating engaging lessons, or finding that elusive work-life balance. I'm here to help you thrive inside and outside of the classroom. Let's dive into today's episode and make a difference together. Hey teacher friend, welcome back to the Teaching Autism and Special Education podcast. Today we're tackling a topic that every special ed teacher faces at some point, sometimes every week. You know those moments when you know what a student needs, you can see it so clearly, but the system, the paperwork, or even other people just won't budge. And that's where advocacy comes in. So today we're talking about how to advocate for your students and yourself, even when you feel stuck, unheard, or exhausted. Because yes, advocacy can feel intimidating, but it doesn't have to be. And when you know how to do it strategically and calmly, you can create real lasting change without burning yourself out. So let's start here. Advocacy isn't conflict. When you hear the word advocacy, you might picture these big meetings with raised voices and having to fight tooth and nail for everything. But true advocacy isn't about fighting. It's about communicating clearly, backing yourself with evidence, and working collaboratively to make sure your students get what they need. It's professional, not personal, and you can do it with confidence, even if you're the quiet type. So shift your mindset. You are the expert. You might not feel like it, but you are the expert on your students. You see them every day. You know their triggers, their progress, their communication patterns, their strength. You hold data that no administrator, therapist, or outside agency can replicate. So when you advocate, remember, you're not asking for a favor. You are providing insight. You are bringing evidence and perspective that others need to make informed decisions. So change from please listen to here's what I've observed and why it matters. And then we're going to gather data that tells a story, because the most powerful advocacy tool you have is data with context. Numbers alone can be ignored. Stories can't. So here's how to gather and present data that has an impact. First of all, I want you to collect objectively. Write what you see, not what you feel. Instead of he gets really angry during math, try he shouted and left the table within 3 minutes of math starting on 4 out of 5 days. And then I want you to add context. I want you to link it to triggers or environmental factors. Each incident occurred when peer group noise levels increased. Then I want you to show both sides, so include the positives as well. When provided with visuals, he remained engaged for 12 minutes. And then use those visuals or patterns, so graphs, tallies, even color-coded logs. Make it easy for others to see what you're seeing, because when data tells a clear story, it is much harder for decision makers to dismiss your recommendations. And you've got to frame your message the right way. So when it comes time to present what you know, how you phrase it matters just as much as what you say. So here's a simple formula I use when advocating in meetings. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's why it matters. Here's what I recommend. So as an example, I've noticed that transitions are the biggest trigger for John. He often refuses and escalates. This matters because it's preventing him from accessing learning time. I recommend that we trial a visual countdown system for the next 2 weeks. It's calm, it's structured, and it's solution-oriented. There's no emotion, no blame, just facts and focus. And then you're going to have to anticipate resistance and stay grounded, because here's the truth. Even the best advocacy efforts will sometimes hit resistance. You might hear things like, we don't have the funding for that. We've tried that before and it didn't work. He just needs to learn to cope. And in those moments, take a breath. You don't have to argue. You just have to stay calm and refocus the conversation. Try phrases like, I understand the concern, but here's what the data shows. Well, can we try this as a short-term trial to see if it helps? What would be the next step if we see no progress? You're inviting collaboration while still holding firm to your point. So the key is stay regulated, stay respectful. You can't de-escalate a meeting with passion alone, but you can do it with poise. Build allies before you need them. Advocacy is much easier when you're not doing it alone. So I highly recommend building positive relationships early with paraprofessionals, therapists, support staff, administrators, families. Share small wins and progress updates, not just concerns, because that will build credibility and trust. And when those people see your consistency and your evidence-based approach, they are far more likely to support you when you need backup later. It turns advocacy from a solo mission into a team effort. And document everything. This might not be glamorous, but it's vital. After every advocacy conversation, especially if there was disagreement, summarize it in writing. And also send a polite email. Thanks for meeting today. To confirm, we agreed to trial the new sensory break schedule for 2 weeks and review the data on the 15th. Keeps everyone accountable and protects you professionally. Documentation isn't about mistrust, it's about misclarity. And I want you to keep the focus on the student. So when meetings get tense, it's very easy for the discussion to shift from the child's needs to logistics, budgets, even adult egos. Gently redirect by saying, okay, let's bring this back to what's best for Sam. Here's what helps him succeed. It's hard for people to argue when you keep the student at the centre, and honestly, this is going to be your secret weapon. Because when you speak from a place of genuine care and calm professionalism, people listen differently and know when to escalate. Sometimes you will advocate calmly and professionally and still hit a wall. If that happens, it is okay to take it up a level. You might need to request a review meeting. You might need to involve a special education coordinator or a team lead. You might need to reference legal frameworks. You might need to bring in supported evidence from outside professionals. And you're not being difficult. You are doing your job. So always escalate respectfully, but don't back down from what your student needs. And advocate for yourself too. So here's something that we definitely don't talk about enough. Teacher advocacy isn't just about the students. You deserve support too. If you need more training, clearer communication, or better resources, now is your time to speak up. Use the same process. Gather data. I'm spending 3 extra hours a week making visuals. Is there a shared resource system we could use? Present calmly and offer solutions. Can we allocate a planning period to set this up? You model self-advocacy for your students every time you do this, and that is a lesson they'll carry for life. And then I want you to regulate before you advocate. You cannot be the calm in the storm if you are the one shaken in the wind. Before a tough meeting, take some time to ground yourself. Breathe, walk, write your key points down. Advocacy from a regulated nervous system lands better. Your voice steadies, your words hit stronger, and your confidence shows through. So remember, calm is power. And then celebrate every small win. Change in education moves slowly, painfully slowly sometimes, but small wins do matter. Maybe the sensory break schedule was approved. Maybe an aide started using the new communication visuals. Maybe you got your student into the morning meeting for the first time this month. Every tiny victory is evidence that your voice matters. So write them down, remind yourself that progress is happening, even if the big picture still feels heavy. And then just remember what advocacy really is. At its heart, advocacy is about belief. Believing in your students when others don't yet see their potential. Believing in your own professional voice. Believing that systems can and must do better. You don't have to be loud to be effective. You just have to be consistent, clear, and compassionate. You're not being pushy, you're being protective. You're not being difficult, you're being dedicated. And every time that you speak up, document, and persist, you are making education a little bit more inclusive for everyone who comes after. So the next time you feel stuck, unheard, or discouraged, just remember that you have power and you have expertise, you have evidence, you have allies waiting to stand beside you. And even when change feels slow, your persistence does matter, because every calm conversation, every data sheet, every can we try this, it all adds up. And you are an advocate, not because it's in your job title, because it's not, but because it's in your heart. Thank you for being that voice for your students, the one who sees what they need and keeps speaking up until others do too. Thank you so much for listening today, and I hope you found this episode helpful, and I will speak to you again soon.